All right, so today we're diving into something pretty interesting, I think. We're calling this one Dogmatism, Fundamentalism, and Cancel Culture. And joining me is...
Oh, hey, everyone.
As always.
Back again.
To help us...
Here we are.
Yeah, unpack this.
Unpack all this.
And we've got some really fascinating source material that we're going to be drawing from.
We do.
So if you are ready to have your mind blown, then buckle up.
Let's do it.
So dogmatism, right?
Yeah.
It's basically like when someone is just so set in their beliefs that they won't even consider.
This can't even fathom like anything else.
Any other perspective, any evidence, any...
Yeah, it's just like, this is the truth, and that's it.
End of story.
Yeah, end of story.
And what's wild is that this actually ties into cancel culture in some pretty surprising ways.
It really does.
But I think what we want to do today is kind of unpack how these two things are related.
Definitely.
And maybe even help our listeners understand how to avoid falling into this trap.
Yeah, absolutely, of rigid thinking.
Yeah.
Because that's really at the core of this.
Totally, totally.
You know, one of the things that really stood out to me in the source material was this term, reality tunnel fundamentalism.
Okay, reality tunnel fundamentalism. Now you're just using big words to try to sound smart.
No.
Come on.
I promise. It's actually a really helpful way to think about this.
Okay, all right. I'm listening. Break it down for us.
So basically, imagine that everyone is looking at the world through their own little tunnel, right?
Okay, I can see that.
And that tunnel is shaped by all their experiences, their beliefs, their values, you name it.
Yeah, I get it. Like we all have our own unique perspective.
Exactly.
Okay.
But the problem is that when we become fundamentalists about our own tunnel, we start to believe that it's the only tunnel.
Oh, I see. Like everyone else is wrong.
Right.
And I'm right.
And we reject any information or perspective that doesn't fit within our tunnel.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense.
And the source material even goes so far as to compare this to idolatry.
Whoa, okay, idolatry.
Yeah.
That's a pretty strong word.
It is, but it's kind of like we're taking our own limited perspective and we're turning it into this sacred object.
Like an idol.
Exactly.
That we can't question.
Yeah, and we refuse to even look at anything else.
Okay, yeah. I'm starting to see how this could lead to some serious problems, like in cancel culture, for example.
Oh, absolutely.
Where people are like shut down or ostracized if they express an opinion that doesn't align with the group's kind of accepted truth.
Exactly, and it all stems from this inability or unwillingness to even consider another point of view.
Yeah, and isn't it crazy that like our brains are actually wired to kind of do this to some extent?
Am I right? It's fascinating.
Like the source material talks about how we naturally gravitate towards information that confirms our existing beliefs.
Right, confirmation bias.
Exactly.
We all have it.
And then we resist anything that challenges them.
Yeah, like our beliefs become our territory, and we have to defend them.
Yeah, like a dog with a bone, you know? Or a primate protecting their territory.
Exactly.
Like, that's how primal this instinct is.
Right.
It's wild.
And this is where this whole concept of emic reality versus etic reality comes in.
Okay, emic and etic.
Yeah.
Hit me with it.
So think of emic reality as your personal experience of the world.
Okay, like my own unique perspective.
Exactly. And it's shaped by your background, your culture, your values, everything that makes you you.
Okay, makes sense.
But then there's etic reality, which is more like the objective outside view.
Like the facts and figures.
Right, the things that are true regardless of your personal experience.
Okay, so it's kind of like the difference between looking at a map of a city versus actually walking the streets.
Exactly. The map gives you the objective layout.
Right.
But it doesn't capture the feel of the place, the smells, the sounds, the people.
Vibes, right.
The vibes, exactly.
Okay, I'm with you.
And the problem is that we often judge other people based on our own emic reality.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
We assume that they experience the world the same way we do.
And if they don't, they're wrong.
Right. Or weird, or even dangerous.
Yeah. Which is how we get all this intolerance and judgment.
Exactly.
And ultimately things like cancel culture.
It's all connected.
Okay, so the source material also talks about this really intense idea called the New Inquisition.
Yeah, it's a powerful analogy.
Can you explain that a little bit for our listeners who might not be familiar?
So the historical Inquisition was this period in history where the Catholic Church persecuted people who had beliefs that were different from their own.
Right, they were pretty brutal.
They were, and the source material uses this analogy to describe how some individuals, often in positions of power or influence, exhibit this really extreme form of dogmatism today.
So like they're the modern day inquisitors.
In a sense, yes.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy comparison.
It is, but it highlights the dangers of this kind of rigid thinking.
Yeah. So if these people are like the inquisitors of today, what kind of tactics are they using to silence opposing views?
Well, the source material mentions a few, like smear campaigns.
Okay, so like trying to ruin someone's reputation.
Exactly.
Just because they have a different opinion.
Yep. Wow. And there's also this whole thing about suppressing information.
Like censorship.
Exactly.
Oh, cool.
And they even give this example of Dr. Wilhelm Reich.
Who's that?
He was a psychiatrist back in the day, and his books were actually burned.
Burned.
Yeah, literally burned, because his ideas were considered too radical.
Okay. Now that's just messed up.
It is, right? It shows how far people are willing to go to silence dissenting voices.
And you know what's funny? Or not funny, but like interesting,
Hmm.
is that they also talk about how these modern day inquisitors refuse to engage in debate.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Because they think that even acknowledging an opposing view gives it legitimacy.
Right. It's like they're afraid that if they even entertain the idea,
Yeah.
that it might gain some traction.
And that's so similar to what we see in cancel culture, too.
Totally.
Like, certain opinions are just so taboo, you can't even talk about them.
Right. They're completely off limits.
So what's the takeaway here? Like, what are the consequences of all this dogmatism?
Well, the source material argues that it hinders learning and growth.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because you're not open to new ideas.
Right, you're stuck in your own little bubble.
Exactly.
Okay.
And it also leads to intolerance and conflict.
Obviously, if you can't even consider another perspective.
Right, you're bound to clash with people who see things differently.
And in extreme cases, it can even lead to violence.
Yeah, the source material actually talks about this specific personality type, the right man.
The right man. What's that all about?
It's this idea that some people are just so convinced that they're right, that they're willing to use force or aggression to get their way.
Oh, wow. That's scary.
It is. It's like they see themselves as the enforcers of truth and righteousness.
And anyone who disagrees is the enemy.
Exactly.
So basically, dogmatism, fundamentalism, cancel culture, they all share this common thread of rigid thinking.
Yes.
And an inability to be open to other perspectives.
And that's the real danger here.
So what's the antidote? Is there any hope?
Well, the source material actually offers a glimmer of hope in this concept of model agnosticism.
Okay, model agnosticism.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, that sounds a little bit like something I'd hear in a philosophy class.
It does, but it's actually a really simple idea.
Okay, I'm all ears.
It's basically about being open to different models of reality.
Like different ways of seeing the world.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
It's about recognizing that your own perspective is just one of many.
And that other people might have valid points of view?
Even if you disagree with them.
Yeah, that's tough, but I get it.
It is tough.
So how do we actually cultivate this model agnosticism? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, I think the first step is just being aware of our own biases.
Like recognizing that we all have those reality tunnels.
Okay.
And then what? Trying to step outside of them.
Yeah, and being willing to listen to other perspectives with an open mind.
Even if they make us uncomfortable.
Especially if they make us uncomfortable.
Okay, that's a challenge, but I think it's a challenge worth taking on.
Absolutely.
So, dear listener, we're going to leave you with this thought.
Yeah.
What are your reality tunnels? And are you willing to step outside of them?
Great question.
Because that's how we can break free from the grip of dogmatism.
And build a more tolerant
and understanding world.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
And keep thinking critically.
Keep those minds open.
We'll see you next time.
See ya.